right, thanks everyone. Thanks for coming in and spending a quick lunch hour with us. We have here is some SOLIDWORKS drawing automation and setup utilizing parametric best practices. So that's what the title is called, and this is what we're going to be kind of covering today. It seems like a lot of people don't know exactly what Property Tab Builder is or what it does, and I kind of want to explore that with a lot of people. We're also going to take a quick preview into part properties. Why is that going to be important for everybody? What does it do? And then we're going to start getting into creating some templates, linking some properties to a title block, modifying these templates in sheet format files, and doing some drawing automation. How can we leverage what we've already done and then bring all that into a drawing? So here's the part that I'm going to be working with. I'm out of Colorado, so I kind of did this design a while back. I put a little computer on it, and it kind of sits under my TV right now, and it was a good starting ground for this kind of thing. It has some simple design work and, shows that Colorado theme that I like. So why do we need part properties? Well, a lot of people use part properties for revision control. They'll put in descriptions, part numbers, right? We can even generate SOLIDWORKS mass properties from it, right? How much are our assemblies weighing, how much our parts weighing when you apply the correct material to it, right? And then we might get some downloadable parts. So these downloadable parts, it may come from, popular places, McMaster-Carr, where we all download some random nuts, bolts, screws, maybe some motors, anything can come from that place. But if you've ever downloaded it, they usually have a lot of part properties in there so that you know what the part is, so you can reorder it, right? So if we just download it and it just says McMaster-Carr, right, I might want to download it and also have all the revision maybe that's gone through or the part number that it is. So that way when I pull it into my BOM, I know exactly where to go. As far as customers, right, that might be something that you want to offer your customers, right? You can go to your website and then your customers can download the parts that you might have available. Then they can, know where they should order their parts and stuff like that. That way, it's not just a bolt that they're just going to order from somewhere else. You want to put your stuff in there for your customers. So if we can fill out that kind of information, that's going to be beneficial. Now we get into Property Tab Builder. Kind of looks like this. I'm going to kind of go through the steps here because bouncing around back and forth is going to kind of drive us a little batty, maybe. So I'm going to kind of lead you through what we're going to do here as far as, on the PowerPoint side of things, and then we'll dive that into SOLIDWORKS so we can actually see some live steps. So this is Property Tab Builder. You can access this through various different ways. The first way is on the right screen. You can have the little properties. If you've never created a property tab before, it's going to have that button right there where it says Create Now. Otherwise, you can get through it through that Home button, and there's a button, a link there. It says, Property Tab Builder. The other way we can get through it is through the tools. So if you hit the little Windows icon, you go to SOLIDWORKS Tools, Property Tab Builder is also that. It is kind of like a separate function outside of SOLIDWORKS, so it will bring up a whole nother window for us. The benefit of using Property Tab Builder is that when we go through all those properties, we might fat finger something in there, right? So part space number versus part number, or all spelled out, right? That's three different ways I just listed, but we might have a group of us that we need to really narrow that down to a specific way, because if we all do it differently, it all going to populate in our BOMs is slightly different, and then that's where we have to then go back and fix all that stuff. So by using the Property Tab Builder, we can automate some steps, and we can decrease the human error and typos that we might put into our actual properties. So that's a lot of stuff that can save us a lot of time. So once you launch that Property Tab Builder, it's going to kind of look like this blank screen here. And then what we kind of want to do is we want to give us that quick finish look on the right. So we're going to go through those steps to kind of get us there. The first thing that we notice is this is our interface. We have our building blocks on the left, and then we have our template preview and what kind of control options each one of those building blocks can control. So in one case, we have our type here. So it's going to be a part, right? We can do this for several different parts. We can do it for a part, an assembly, a drawing, and a weldment. So just different functionalities that we can use in each one of those steps. So that way, your properties might not all be the same for a part or an assembly or drawing. You might have different ones, so you can create these different property tab files. Then we can rename some of those custom properties, right? So we might say part data versus something generic, right? From there, once we take from that group box, we can grab and drag what we want or those building blocks into our properties and then control it. So here you can see we're dragging and dropping, we're renaming it, and then we're giving it some kind of name at the custom property level. And then we're just going to keep dragging and dropping. Now, we're going to go through several of these. We grab our text box, which is just a pretty plain Jane thing. Then we're going to go through a list. We can drag and drop that. And the list is something that might be defined. So in this case, we're going to say it's drawn by, and we're just going to put some ABCs and 1, 2, 3s on that. But if this is also something as a list, you might want to allow custom values. So if you have a contractor in this case with the drawn by, he might want to put his name in there. It might not be a list you're always going to keep, but you might want it to be as a fill in the blank type of thing. Other cases, you might have a bunch of employees and that's just a selection list. We can also do a text box again, and if we do a drawn date, the type is going to change, and when we say date, the calendar is going to be populated on our selection box later on. So let's go ahead and do that before we even get started with changing our custom property field here. So let me jump out of this. So here's our part, like I said. Before we had it listed, we had the Create Now button here, but I just want to be able to show you that we have it here as well. Here we go. So here's our property tab. You can see it populates with a whole different window. So again, here's our group boxes and our things that we can drag and drop. So the first thing that I want to do is grab what kind of style this is. So over here is, we're going to make a part 1. So anytime we bring in just a regular part, it's going to be something that we can fill in on the right side over here. When we click the group box, we can always fill this in differently, right? And expanded versus collapsed, it's just going to be like, is it going to be expanded when we first load it, or is it going to be collapsed and we have to then expand it? So I'm going to keep this as expanded, and we can show you that later on here. So right now I'm just naming this box, right? So the next thing I want to do is I'm going to take this text box, I'm going to drag and drop it into my field here, right, into the group box. So this group box we'll show this again here in a second. But what the group box does is it kind of groups things into separate boxes. So again, we'll show you that and what that means here in a second. But this text box, you can see we can rename. Drawn by. Again, we're going to keep this here as drawn by. And what this is just like a text field that we can put in there. This one's actually going to be revision. If you make a mistake, you can always rename this stuff. This is just going to be a text value, so this is going to be like A, B, C, or D. Then we want another text box. This one is going to be the date field. And again, instead of text, we're going to say date, and we're going to be able to see what happens here in a minute. Then we got our another list field. We're going to drop that right in the middle here, and this one is going to be drawn by. And this is going to be a list. So again, this is where we would put, ABC, 1, 2, 3, initials, names, however you want to do this. This could be company, vendors, right? And then again, we can allow those custom values, and we'll see how that affects this list here in a second. But this might be vendors or paint schemes or any of that kind of stuff. We can actually list this out this way, so that way it's a quick way of just clicking these as you go versus always trying to fill that in with a blank text box. The blank text box is going to be like revision. So again, like ABC or 1, 2, 3 probably for revision versus like a drop down. From here, we're just going to keep this kind of on the simple side of this, and we're going to save this. So we'll go ahead and save this. It is going to create a file for us. So you can see here, it's a part properties template file. I'm going to take note where I'm going to stash it. Right now, it's going to go into my custom templates and this custom property things, and I'm going to just rename this as webcast. Now I can leave that box open, and that's perfectly fine. For what now I need to do is I need to actually apply it over here. So if I go up to my settings, and I need to go down to file locations, and I need to go to custom property files. You can see here I've already added this location, which is what it's really looking for on the right over here. So you definitely need to have everything kind of stashed in one spot. Again, a server is a great spot to stash all your custom property files. So from here, if I had multiple property files, I could select it from our list here. So once I've selected it, you can see it kind of has like this box around it. Remember, that's kind of our box here. Well, before I fill this in, I want to go ahead and show you the current properties that I have here. So you can see that there is no properties currently filled out. Let's go ahead and fill that out. So maybe who is it drawn by, right? Here's our list, but remember we said custom, so I can put in my initials maybe. And the date, right? So remember I said on the date, it would actually give us a calendar. So because it's still a text box, we fill out as date, we get this option, and that fills that in. Now, as I say apply, now I go back to my options here. You can see that now I have all of my options have been applied. So the cool part is once I kind of get this guy going, I can just keep adding more and applying these settings back and forth. Here we have apply it and pushed it through. But there's all kinds of stuff that we can do later on. I'm going to keep this slide up so you guys can kind of check it out for a second. This is that second way I was talking about getting it. If I hit that Windows button here and I go to the SOLIDWORKS Tools, Property Tab Builder is also something you can grab. Once we have that up, we can change it up a bit. So you might have customer, project number, manufacturing details. You can also pull in SOLIDWORKS material at that point, right? Because it's just a text box that we can link to. Maybe a weight is also something that we can automatically pull in. And, we might want to paint this in-house. And if we do paint it in-house, right, we might get some other options there, maybe color-specific material, right? You can get that. And then here's how it would look on the right-hand side. If we have a different group box, right, we'd have a different group box here. And again, we have a different manufacturing details group box. So that would be this group box. So each one of these group boxes over here kind of has the same preview onto the right-hand side. Now, why is this useful, right? Again, we're going back to the reducing of errors. If I can very specifically put in ABC, I know that that is going to be the same for everything, or the drawn by, perfectly the way I want to execute it in my properties. The revision, again, instead of REV for one person, it's spelled out revision for everybody. That keeps everything nice and clean when we start bringing all that data into our title block fields and bill of material fields. It's also going to be the same property for all the parts, right? So I can also, if I want to delete everything I currently have in there, so let's go ahead and try that. A lot of people don't know you can do this, is you can go through here and you can shift all this stuff and you can just hit the delete button and all those properties then go away. So again, if you had something that was maybe downloaded and you really didn't want it to be, filled out the way that it is, or maybe it's got too many options in there, I don't know, it could be something that you can mess with. You can always go back, reload this, and put in the fields all over again, hit apply, and we would just reset all of our properties here. So that's something quickly and easily you can do, especially if they start getting kind of jumbled up here with, different revisions and drawn bys and all that kind of stuff. Maybe just start over and have a field that we just apply that to. So now that we have kind of our property tab builder done, let's kind of check out some creating templates. So why do we need templates, right? Again, it's a great place to start your part assembly or drawing. A lot of people don't know that you can have planes preset in a part, or your assembly might already have something mated at the very beginning, stuff like that. And it saves you time, right? I don't have to always start from our basic scratch. It also has, your different options. Your document properties are already set. So you don't always have to go back and change up your properties and your fonts and arrows, stuff like that in your document properties. Some people need very specific things. Other people are very generic. So that's all options for you to set. You might have different customers. Different customers might need different arrows and line types and fonts, or different logos to start with. So in case of a drawing, right, you might have a different title block for different customers. So in that case, always starting from scratch is going to be a huge waste of time versus if I can have it pre-set up, it's going to save me a bunch of time. There's also sheet sizes. So your typical A, B, C, D, and E are kind of in this range here. And there's a difference between architectural and metric and US ANSI. So here are those different sizes for each one. You can see that architectural, by the time you get to the E size, you're 2 inches bigger, and was that 4 inches wider or taller in this case. And metric, that they kind of go by their own set of metric-y rules. So nothing kind of comes out and it's a nice even inch there. But that's kind of the differences between ANSI and architectural scale. So we start creating these templates. This is kind of what we're talking about, right? So this is mainly focused on drawings. Again, you can create templates as a part or assembly, but we're going to focus on drawing templates. Our drawing document, so our template is going to be more or less holding all three of these together. Our drawing document is going to be just our custom properties, display settings, and our document properties. Again, it's very easy. Then we start getting into this page here, which is our drawing sheet. That has our drawing views and annotations. That's usually what we see when we're putting something on a drawing. It's got the scale, type of projections, our sheet size, etc. What people don't usually play with is the sheet format. So our sheet format is actually copied onto our drawing sheet. So if we change our sheet format, we will have to go back and reload or reread it through our sheet properties here. And we're going to get to that during this lesson to kind of see how that works out. A lot of times people need to do this because logos change or customers get bought out or someone has different branding that they want to use and you need to change that, but you don't want to go through all the drawings and change it manually. Well, there's a slightly easier way of doing that and it's much more user-friendly. So our drawing sheet, right, that's everything title block based, borders, anchors, notes, links to our custom properties that we want to pull in, custom property names and values. That's kind of where a lot of our, again, anything usually related to our title block is going to be on the sheet format file. So here's kind of our workflow that we're going to explore here is if you see a symbol, and in my case, like this guy, where I actually have it named, this does not include a sheet format. So when you actually click on it, you will see that it will have some kind of visible, I don't know what you want to call it, preview. If I do click on any one of these ones here, it does not have a preview, meaning that it's going to automatically ask us what sheet size are we going to pick on our list here. So there's no sheet format associated to it. We'll have to make one. You can also, once we have that, you can right click and you can go into properties and we can change this to our liking. Yeah, it just kind of depends what we're aiming to do. It's very easy to get into the edit sheet format. We may have done this by accident. I see lots of students, they do this by accident all the time where they're kind of clicking along and before they know it, they're in the sheet format and they don't know what's going on. And you have to kind of go over there and be like, oh, you got into the sheet format. So let's get out of it, right? So you can right click on the sheet here, you can right click in space here, you can right click on the tab, and pretty much they always say like edit sheet format. And before you know it, and you're in some kind of screen like this, and the sheet format is really good because it's everything that has to do with your title block. So here's some examples, right? Usually description, part numbers, material, finish, drawn by, company name, all that kind of fun stuff. Now here's a lot of words here, and I'll spend some time on it. But we're going to be getting to the creating templates. Anything, so let me back up one. You can see here is our $PRP sheet, and it's using the description. So if I'm in the sheet, technically I'm not looking at the sheet, I'm looking at the model. So you can see here is a property name linked to the model references. So this would be the references that are in our part properties, or that metadata. If it says just PRP property name, then we're looking at the metadata that's associated to the current document that are in. So in this case, it would be the drawing document. So you can have property names in the document that we're using, or the drawing in this case, or you can be linking it to a model in this case, or you can link it to actual SOLIDWORKS properties. So anything with the PRP is going to be looking at the properties of that document. Anything with a PRP sheet is going to be looking at an outside resource. This could be, weight, any kind of, maybe a center of mass, stuff like that. So in this case, here's a pretty good little screenshot as far as where these properties might be found at. So you can see things here in red are drawing custom properties. So that would be the properties inside this document. And here people sometimes put in, drawn by, checked off, what the company name is, what the revision is, stuff like that. Anything in blue here would be the model custom properties. So this would be properties that will come in straight from model. So in this case, it might be the drawing name or the file name. So this wouldn't be something you put in, but more or less saved as some kind of drawing property. Material here would be, that comes straight from the material and maybe what kind of finish that you have labeled on in the property. Weight here comes from a SOLIDWORKS property. So you can see it kind of fills in for you there. And then we have anything special properties. So this is, a name, sheet 1 of 1, drawing size. So all those things here are coming in straight from SOLIDWORKS property stuff. So we'll be creating linking the properties to notes and adding a part description. So you can see here, we might have lots of different configurations. So we might have a description, in my case, motherboard base, and where the motherboard base would actually be filled out in this one. So we're going to be doing, I'm going to show you guys how to kind of do this, but I kind of want to run through it so I'm not kind of bouncing around on you. Once we are in our property sheet here, we can click an area, and usually some of these areas are pre-filled out, and all we have to do is add here, and this button over here is where we can actually link to our property. So I can say the model versus our current document. I can say who it's drawn by. That might be a field that we're going to be clicking in. And then we can repeat the steps in all these categories. And then when we create these templates, right, we can add plain text here. That might be, something. In my case, I just put my name and what this is. It's a motherboard base. This is what my file is called. This is what the drawing is. I labeled it as. And then we're going to save this as a sheet format, right, because it's a very specific title block. Then we're going to create the template here. So we're going to change the scale a little bit, put some predefined views in this one. We can then going to go into our options here, so we can set automatically inserted options here. So maybe some center marks, some dowel spots, connected to our hole patterns, dimensions marked for drawing, that kind of stuff will automatically be populated when these options are toggled on. Again, that's in the document properties in the detailing section of here. So because it's in the document properties, anything we add here, we want to make sure we save those settings, and we will create a template with those. And it's very easy. We can say save our template. So we usually go File, Save As, and it's a template here. So yeah, File, Save As, drawing template, and it will be called a template. And then we can insert our model. Because we made some predefined views here, we're going to use our new template. And you can see because we have some of those options selected, it kind of comes in a little wonky, but once it's in there, we can easily go ahead and clean it up and make it look really fancy. We're going to change our branding and then show you how to go back and save the sheet format. So before we do this, let's go ahead and bounce back into SOLIDWORKS and show you how to do those templates making. So I'm going to go right up to the new button, and you can see if I actually click on any one of these, there it is, start drawing here. The little window pops up, it's a blank piece of paper, versus some of these other ones are already defined with an actual border and whatnot around it. So these are already like more or less saved templates. So I'm going to create a new one here. And like I said, I'm going to say OK. By saying OK, and then it's going to ask us which one are we going to use. So I think A will work, a portrait, that one. So here we go. We kind of have our guy there. And if we go to our drawing tab, we can select our base. Right, so I'm going to grab our top view, just going to stamp it in space here. It's already going to start defining that one. And we want to make it a little bigger. So I'm going to right click and go into my properties and make it bigger. Pretty simple things to do there. All right, so now let's get into our sheet format, because that's going to be the meat and bones of this. So again, I can right click here. I can go to the sheet over here. It's all edit sheet format, or I can right click the tab and say edit sheet format. So once I'm in edit sheet format, I'm really in a different file that's being copied again onto this page. So if I go into this zone, I can click in this zone here, and it'll pops up with a little bar, and I can go ahead and link to a property, and I can say the model found at this location and what the property name might be. So you can say I have drawn by. At this case, it's DEF. I can say OK. And the date, I can click the date, and I can do the same thing. I just keep linking to the properties of the model that's going to be found here. You might have checked engineering, and these are other fields that we're going to have to populate with more properties in our part, but for now, I think you guys get the point there. Now, I can add regular text, so I can just go ahead and I think there's a text box there. Delete that. I'm just going to add a regular note here that says something like that, right? That might be my business logo for right at the moment. Again, that's plain text, though. That's not linked to anything. So that's going to be OK for now. Now that I've created a sheet format, right, maybe I've gone through and I've done that to a bunch of different spots. Maybe I've added more lines and I've added more documents, but it's pretty much the same steps through everything else. Once I'm done with that, I can go to File, and I'll say Save Sheet Format. Our sheet format is going to be located here. In my case, you can see it's kind of here, and I thought I had one that was already set up, but do the same thing. Just create a webcast version of this, and I'll save it. So now the sheet format is saved. So then what I want to do is I actually want to delete this view because this view is not predefined. It's just a view that I've inserted there to make sure that this is working. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this view, and I'm going to insert some predefined views. Predefined. So in this case, I can insert some predefined views. So once I click it there, then I get, other options. I can do the top, the right, etc. So in this case, it's the front. So maybe I just want the top in this case. I can add the front, top, right, all that kind of stuff if I want to, or I can start projecting it. So if I want to project my view, I would have to go to layout. I could say project view, right? So now I'm just projecting this view. Let's just go ahead and save that and see how that looks later on. And before we deal with that, I want to show you the options. So if I get into my options tab, remember we're in document properties. So when I save this, it's going to look into all of this stuff here. Dive into the detailing, and you can see here's where I can auto insert all of the things. So in one case, I might say dimensions marked for drawing. So I'm just checking a few of these other ones to make sure I grabbed them all. That should work. So now I have my predefined views. I have this thing filled out. What I want to do is I want to save this as a template. So I'll go to File, and I'll say Save As. And instead of drawing here, I'm just going to say a drawing template. You can see I already have one here. I'm going to go ahead and overwrite that one. Right, it's just saying that, hey, this is storing empty views and they'll be defined later, and I already know that. I'm going to go ahead and get out of this. So you can see now, here's my template. Again, everything's the same way. I still have my drawing and stuff. You can see here it's draw to, and these things aren't pre-populated yet because I haven't actually inserted my model. So I'm going to right-click one of these predefined views, and I'm going to tell it to insert the model into it. Because this guy is already up, we kind of get the model to work with. I can browse for a new one if I so wished. And again, since I had that toggle that said open up everything, insert all of the dimensions that are created in this part, I kind of get this. Again, it's a little messy, but it's not something that I can't work with and kind of fix it, etc. Like I showed you, it doesn't take that long to move stuff around. If some of the stuff did need to be moved around, maybe this dimension into this view, you can hold the Shift key. So I'm just holding the Shift key, dragging and dropping into this view, and you can see that I have physically moved this over here. Now, the benefit of doing this way is the fact that these dimensions here are physical dimensions that are linked back to my model. So it'd be the same thing if I went to annotation, I said insert model items, right? If you've ever done drawings this way, it's the same thing, only it did things automatically instead of me actually going to the model items here. So if I wanted to change something, all that I'd do really is double click this and change it to, 245. Let's see if it'll work. You can see we get that little hashing kind of going on, and I can rebuild it. That's what it's asking for. And my model would just change just a little bit to an overall of 245. I don't think it'll, let's see, it would be the sideways dimension. So from here to here. It's nice. See, this comes in inches. So, and then if we go to here, we can do custom. We'll say millimeters. There it is. So now it's at 245 millimeters because those dimensions are linked to this model. So if I change those, I've just changed my model. So again, that's also having the benefit of having a fully defined sketch, is that if it's a fully defined sketch and I insert my model items, all of the necessary dimensions in order to make my part are going to be populated into my drawing for me. So that's how we can make a lot of our views or drawings a lot more quickly and save a lot of time, right? I can already have these views already set up. Again, you're going to have to kind of work with something that you're going to use. If I already had this defined as my top, right, and left, but I never actually used my front, top, and left, I would have to change these views to work with the models that I'm more or less pre-populated in the right orientation, and this would work a lot easier. So we saved our sheet format, and we've saved it, so that's good. Oh, right, we're changing it now. So what happens if our branding is changed, right? So instead of Craig's Mobo, right, maybe I've created a company that's 3D motherboard designs or something like that, and I'm creating all kinds of stuff, right? I really branched out in this scenario, and I'm rebranding this. So I have a lot of drawings that I've had previous, but now I want to change them. So let's simplify those changes. So we're going to go ahead and dive into the edit sheet format. We'll change it here, but we're going to leave everything else the same. And then we're going to resave it. Once we resave it, we're going to overwrite it. And then the next step is to exit the sheet format, save the working drawing because we have it working, start a new drawing using the template that we created or want to change. That's going to be kind of the tricks here. Once we have it done here, we're going to select the new sheet format here. We either browse it or go through our list here, and we're going to apply those changes. You might have to use a Control Q for a rebuild. So then our sheet is going to change here, right? Since Craig is going to say 3D motherboard. From here, once it's reread into the drawing, you have to resave the template again. So the reason for that is our template has already copied in our sheet format. So we're pretty much doing all the same steps again. We're grabbing of something that's very blank. Then we're copying that thing over and resaving the template over the other one. It sounds like a lot of work, but we get this call a lot. Is because, hey, I just did this. Why isn't it not working? Well, you have to open up your template, copy in or reread your sheet format, then resave your template over itself. Then it will work. All right, so let's dive into that so I can show you guys how that works out. So again, once drawing's all good, we'll save it. But for our case, I'm just going to close it. I want to grab this guy. It's fresh. Nothing's changed on it yet. And I'm just going to go right-click in there, and I'm going to say edit the sheet format. So remember, instead of Craig's, it's going to say something like 3D. Right? This could be name change, logo change. It doesn't really matter, but it's all going to be the same thing. You can notice that I got out of that before I saved it. Not a big deal. File, save sheet format. It's the same thing right here. Again, I'm going to go over here and see if I can't find that last one I did. There's webcast. I'm just going to save over the top. It doesn't matter. So I'm going to say save. Yes, I want to replace it. Right? So now we have this guy, and now I need to save it as a template. So I'm going to say File, Save As, Drawing Template, and I'm going to overwrite the one that I created. I think I'm missing a step, but we'll see if this works. There it goes. So you can see I oversaved it as a template, so that brings in my 3D motherboard file there. So now I can change up the other drawings that I might have. So for instance, I could say, yeah, testing is key for this one. Make sure it's right. So let's say I might have, I think I have an A size here. Let's give it a shot. Right? So let's say I have an old one. I can always right click, go to properties. I'd have to then find it in my list here. There's webcast. And I can say apply changes. You can see I just applied changes to that sheet format. So that would be something you'd have to do on a manual step there, is if you had something that was like the other one, right? Maybe an old drawing, that's how I would have to reload my page. And then everything here would be the same as far as your views. All right, so that kind of leads me into the the best practices and how to get things started. We went through the part properties and why that's important. We went through property tab builder and why that can save us a lot of time. We also, something to note in Property Tab Builder is that I can create that tab builder, and I can also link that to my data card in EPDM. That way I can only fill it out once, right? Those properties might be in the EPDM data card. I can fill out those properties there and have it read into the same property card of my Property Tab Builder, which then applies it to my part properties. So that way, if you fill it in once, it populates everywhere. So that's the benefit of using EPDM as well and the Property Tab Builder. Then we did some creating of templates. I showed you how to create ones purely from scratch for the most part. Then we linked some of those properties to our title block. We saved that as a template and sheet format files. Then we also made some changes to our sheet format, showed you how to reread that back into our template and then resave our template so it will be used again. Then we used some drawing automation tools using the insert predefined views. Again, right-clicking on that predefined view to insert our model is going to be key there. Some upcoming webinars that we have coming up. Big applications for large polyjet printers, introduction to routing, piping and tubing. That one's going to be really good. That's something that I don't use a lot of, but it's out there and it's great to see somebody use it like a pro. And then we have our CATIpult session evaluate. It's the whole reason why we assemble. And we have our link here in the description for our event and schedule. Hey guys, thank you for joining us in this webcast. I hope you guys learned something, if not just a different way of inserting some dimensions that links our part to our drawing, or easy way to leverage customer files, or logos, and being able to change that in the fly versus doing something hard. Hopefully we got some automation technique in there. Chris, I'll go ahead and turn it back over to you and let you kind of see if there's any questions or close this out.
All right, thanks very much, Craig. Yeah, I hope it was useful. You are a brave soul for taking on the Property Tab Builder. I probably haven't touched that thing in about 15 years of using SolidWorks, so I need to practice, that's for sure. I've been handling a few little questions as they came in, so we'll go ahead and wrap everything up. Thank you very much, Craig, for putting this together. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Hope you had a great day. I hope you got something out of it. I understand that this is kind of a deep subject in drawings, like Craig mentioned. We get these questions constantly, so I'm just going to put in the support information for tech support. If anything is not working the right way, or you have to fill that note in every single time, even though you think you've saved the sheet format, definitely hit us up on tech support, and we can do everything to get you going where you need to go. So have a great day, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.